Hi, I'm Jimmy Aluria with 3A Automotive and Diesel Repair. We get a lot of questions about diesel performance and maintenance. So today I'm going to share some of the most common questions and answer those so you can make sure that your diesel lasts, as well as get the most power, most efficiency, and the most reliability out of your diesel. What are the best maintenance habits to keep a diesel engine performing at its peak? The best maintenance habits to keep in order to keep that diesel engine performing at its peak are really the simple ones. And those are the ones that the manufacturers recommend the most. Those are your oil changes, your fuel filter changes, and your air filter. Let's start with the oil change. Diesels are just like any other engine. They need to be maintained and the fluids need to be clean inside that diesel. If we let the diesel oil go too long, that's a lot of dirt and debris that is inside the engine and it loses its ability to lubricate that engine. But if we keep the diesel engine clean by replacing the oil and the filter every 5,000 to 7,000 miles, we're gonna see that that diesel can easily go 300,000 to 500,000 miles. So do your diesel oil changes every 5,000 to 7,000 miles, even though sometimes the manufacturers will let you go a little further. We recommend here at 3A Automotive and Diesel Repair that you go 5,000 to 7,000 miles. It's the cheapest insurance that you can buy because a diesel engine is $30,000 to $40,000 to replace. The second one is your air filter. Now, out here in Arizona, we get a lot of dirt and dust in the air. And the air filter that filters the air that's going into the engine gets really dirty over time. And it's a really cheap insurance. They're not as cheap as a normal car, but for under $100 every 6 months or so, depending on what kind of driving you do, you can change that air filter and make sure that the air that's going into the engine is clean air. There's another reason why we want to make sure that clean air is going into the engine. It's because in the diesel, most of the time, they're turbocharged. And that air that's coming from the outside is going to be boosted into that engine. And we want to make sure that we don't have any sand and dirt and dust in there compressing that into the engine and destroying the components in the engine prematurely. The third thing that you want to make sure that you stay on top of is definitely the fuel filters. Some diesel trucks have more than one, most have one. But no matter what, you want to change those fuel filters based on the manufacturer's recommendations. Usually that's somewhere between 20 and 30,000 miles. So every few oil changes, you're also going to be changing the fuel filters. Now, why do we do that? Well, one of the most expensive components in a diesel engine are the injectors. And if the fuel that's coming from the tank, okay, if it's not filtered properly before it hits those injectors, it can clog up those injectors. The fuel that you put in your diesel from the gas pump is not clean. There's all kinds of debris in there and it settles at the bottom of the tank. And as you're driving, it gets mixed up in the fuel. If it sucks that dirt up in and it doesn't get properly filtered or it goes past the filter because it's so dirty, you're gonna prematurely wear out or break your diesel injectors. So we wanna make sure we have clean fuel going into that engine. Again, that's gonna make that diesel last a long time. How often should diesel owners schedule full maintenance services to maintain power and efficiency? In order to maintain power and efficiency, you should schedule your regular maintenance on your diesel based on the manufacturer's recommendations. Now, every make and model is going to be a little bit different on that, but the big ones are your oil changes, your fuel filter services, your coolant services, and your air filter services. So if you're going to a professional shop to get those services done, at least if you're even having the oil changes done, they're going to be watching that maintenance schedule and they're going to be looking at the condition of those fluids and filters to make sure that they are clean. Sometimes it doesn't matter how many miles are on a diesel before the oil change needs to get done. Why would that be? Well, first of all, a lot of times diesels are used in commercial applications. And so that diesel engine is running while it's idling, sitting on a job, the air conditioning's going, the heater's going, it's running something else that is attached to the truck, meaning some sort of equipment that's attached to the diesel engine. So miles doesn't necessarily mean anything at that point. So a lot of diesel engines are idling a lot and they're actually using the diesel engine as power. And so that maintenance schedule is going to be a little more often than somebody who's just driving it to and from work or normal driving habits. So how often really is two things. Number one, you want to make sure that you're following the manufacturer's recommendations for your truck. And the other thing is take it to a professional and have them look over the fluids, look over the filters and see the condition of those things, because sometimes they need to be done before the mileage says that they need to be done because they've been idling. And so time is how often that truck is running, not necessarily the mileage. How does the quality of diesel fuel impact performance and longevity? The quality of diesel fuel is really not the same as gas fuel. When we go and fill up our gas vehicles, we usually have 2 or 3 choices of quality of fuel. Whereas in the diesel, you typically have one grade, and it's a green tab that tells you that that is diesel fuel. So there's not a lot of options. There are some additives that you can put into the fuel, but most trucks, you don't really need to put those additives in there. It's not gonna change performance that much. The performance of a diesel is really in the technology of the diesel and making sure that the fluids are clean, the filters are clean, and if you do that, you're gonna get maximum performance out of that diesel just by putting normal diesel fuel into the tank. Why do regular filter changes, oil, air, and fuel, make such a difference in power and mileage? Regular filter changes of your oil filter, your air filter, and your fuel filter make a huge difference in the power and mileage of your diesel. Now, why is that? Well, first of all, you're gonna get a lot more longevity if you do regular service on that vehicle. So changing those filters, the oil filter with the oil, the fuel filter, and the air filter is going to keep the air and the fuel clean going into that engine. And of course, the oil is collecting dirt and all kinds of things just from the combustion of that diesel fuel. It's actually getting dirty. Diesel oil gets dirty pretty fast. It doesn't mean that it's bad. So we service it based on mileage. So if we keep the fluids and the filters clean in the diesel, you're gonna maximize the power that that diesel is putting out, because the injectors are working properly, because they don't have any dirt coming in them, because that fuel is being filtered before it hits the injectors. The engine is running smooth because it's properly lubricated and it's not getting undue wear because of past due oil changes over a long period of time. And then of course the air is not sucking dirt and dust from the environment because we've got clean air filters and clean air is going into that diesel. And that's gonna make a big difference on the power and the mileage that you get in your diesel. How does driving style affect diesel engine performance and fuel economy? Like any engine, a diesel is no different. Your driving style is definitely going to affect the way your diesel performs and the fuel economy. If your foot is in the diesel, it is not gonna get the best mileage that it can possibly get. But the truth of the matter is, with most diesels, these trucks are very powerful. And if you need to pass somebody or you're pulling a heavy load, you can put your foot in that and you're gonna maximize that performance. So it's just like any other gas vehicle. If your foot's in it, you're not gonna get very good gas mileage, but you are gonna get quite a bit of performance. So use it smartly. If you like to race from light to light, just know that you're not gonna get very good diesel mileage. But also at the same time, if you drive it normally, these diesels have a tremendous amount of power. And even with your foot lightly on the gas, you're going to actually get pretty good gas mileage. Some of these diesels are getting anywhere between 20 to 30 miles per gallon with normal driving. So it does make a big difference how heavy you are on the gas. It determines what kind of performance you get, as well as the kind of fuel economy you get. What role does proper cooling system care play in keeping a diesel efficient? Proper cooling system care doesn't play a lot into how efficient the diesel is. It really plays more into how long that diesel engine lasts. If we do good cooling system maintenance based on the manufacturer's recommendations, and that varies by tens of thousands of miles depending on what type it is. But as long as we're keeping good clean fluid in that system, then it's not going to gel up and it's not going to plug up the radiator or get gummed up inside of the engine. The other thing is that as we drive the vehicle with the coolant in there, it gets acidic. And the older the fluid is, the antifreeze is, it gets acidic and it'll start eating away at the rubber and the different metals inside the engine and inside the radiator. So we want to make sure that we're flushing that stuff out, meaning we're exchanging that. And some shops even do like what we call a power flush. Well, it'll actually flush out, we put a chemical in there, it'll make sure that that cooling system is nice and clean and any of that gelled up antifreeze is flushed out of that system, making sure that it's keeping that diesel running at optimum temperature. How can owners protect their diesel engines from performance loss in extreme heat? If you're in extreme heat or you tow a lot of heavy things with your diesel, the best thing that you can do to protect the diesel from the heat and from the towing is proper maintenance. What I recommend is having your oil changes done by a professional. And the reason I say that is every 5,000 to 7,000 miles, maybe 10,000 miles, you have a professional looking at that. They're gonna look at all the fluids, they're gonna look at all the filters, and they're gonna look at all the service intervals that diesel needs. If the diesel is up on all of its maintenance, it is not gonna have any problem carrying heavy loads, and it doesn't matter how hot it is, it's gonna perform at its peak. The problems come when we have a lack of maintenance. And most of the breakdowns that we see, diesels that come into this shop on a tow truck, it's usually because they were run hard when it's hot, they were pulling something heavy, and The most common thing is they are over on almost all of their basic maintenance. Oil changes, transmission services, cooling system services, fuel filters, all those types of things are behind. So the best thing you can do if you're in extreme heat or you're carrying heavy loads is do the regular maintenance and have a professional look over all the manufacturer's recommendations to make sure that those are on time. Using the correct type or grade of oil and fluids in your diesel is absolutely one of the most important things you can do in a modern diesel. You can't believe how many different types of antifreeze, different types of oil, different types of transmission fluid, different types of differential fluid for the axles in the truck. There are so many different types of fluids that we have to use our computers to look those things up. Unfortunately, the manufacturers don't make that stuff real easy to get to, and so you want to make sure that even if you're going to a parts house, that they actually know what they're doing and looking up the right things. We actually had a diesel in here last week where the wrong fluid was in the transmission and it was making the transmission chirp. There was like a hesitation. And what we found was that the manufacturer had changed the type of fluid that went into that transmission. We changed out the fluid with the upgraded transmission fluid, and all of a sudden the problem went away. So one of the most important things that you can do is make sure that you have the correct grade of fluids, the right antifreeze, the right transmission fluid is being put in your diesel truck on those service intervals. Okay, if you do that, they're gonna last a long time and you're gonna get the maximum performance. What benefits can fleet owners gain from consistent performance checks and tune-ups? If you're an owner or a manager of a fleet, by doing consistent tune-ups and consistent performance checks at an auto repair shop can give you a lot of gains. First of all, regular oil changes being done at a repair shop or by some sort of a professional. What does that do? Well, in most shops today, what we're doing when we're doing a full oil change is we're also looking over the entire vehicle. We're checking all the fluids, we're checking all the filters, we're looking over all of the components of the vehicle to make sure that everything's in tip-top shape. If there's anything that we need to keep an eye on, we actually have pictures and we can keep a record of that, a snapshot of that. And then the next time the vehicle comes in for its oil change, we can check on the condition and see if it's something that we need to look at or actually fix at that time. But if you're doing regular checkups, regular tune-ups on a non-diesel vehicle, you're gonna make sure that that fleet vehicle lasts a long time. People spend a lot of money on their fleet vehicles, and just doing the regular oil changes, the regular transmission services, changing out the filters, and having a professional look at that vehicle every 3,000 to 5,000 miles, or a little bit longer if it's a diesel, maybe 7,000 miles, you're gonna get professional eyes on things and avoid those costly breakdowns. A professional eye looking at those vehicles is gonna be able to predict that a battery is going bad, and so that truck isn't stuck out on a job someplace and then having to have it towed or something like that, where it's just costly downtime. So if you want to really get the most out of your fleet and you want to have less problems with your fleet, have the oil changes done at a professional repair shop and make sure that repair shop is doing a full inspection and keeping you aware of any predictable things that may be going on with that vehicle. How can preventative maintenance help avoid loss of power and reduced fuel efficiency over time? Preventative maintenance can help avoid loss of power and reduce fuel economy on pretty much any type of vehicle. So when you take your car or your truck into an auto repair shop, one of the things that our job is to do is to make sure that that vehicle is performing like it was new. When it was new, it was performing most efficiently and it had the most power. And how do we do that? Well, the first one you start off with is oil changes. Regular oil changes put fresh oil in that engine. It leads to less friction in the engine and it makes sure that that engine lasts the longest. If we have dirty oil, it creates more friction and that's when the engine goes bad. Fuel filters, especially in diesels. We want to make sure there's clean fuel going into the system and we're not clogging up the injectors. Injectors today in diesels and gas vehicles are very expensive. So we want to make sure if that vehicle has a fuel filter that we're changing that out on the regular service interval. And then air filters. Air filters are something that's very neglected. Your vehicle, whether it's a diesel or gas, needs clean air going into it. And the air filter is really, really cheap insurance to ensure that clean air is going into that engine and no dust and debris is being sucked into the engine and causing premature damage. So if you do that preventative maintenance, you're gonna make sure that your vehicle has the most power that it can possibly have and you're gonna get the most fuel economy over time. What kind of mileage can diesel owners realistically expect with proper performance maintenance? The type of mileage that a diesel owner can expect with proper maintenance ranges quite a bit depending on what type of a truck and what it's used for. So we've got some of these modern eco diesels that are made by several different companies. Those things are getting 25 to 35 up to 40 miles to the gallon. with proper maintenance, they will maintain that mileage for most of the life of the vehicle. We expect these vehicles to last 300,000 to 500,000 miles. So if you're doing regular maintenance, if you're not maintaining them, you're not doing the oil changes, you're not doing the fuel filter changes, the air filter changes, and all the other preventative maintenance around that, you're probably not going to get 300,000 miles out of it. But if you do, you're going to get the mileage, but you're also going to keep the performance and the good fuel economy that these modern diesels are getting. You get into the heavier duty diesels, the work trucks, and depending on what they have on the back of them, if they're carrying like a plumber carrying a lot of copper, or an electrician, or any type of a commercial application where they have a lot of tools on the truck, it's heavy. So that mileage is gonna be different depending on what's on the back or what it's pulling. But the modern diesels are getting 15 to 25 miles to the gallon, even with a heavy load. So the technology is absolutely amazing, but the way to maximize that fuel economy is by doing the preventative maintenance based on the manufacturer's recommendations. I hope this video was helpful in answering some of your questions about your diesel regarding performance and maintenance. If you'd like to schedule an appointment, you can go online to our website, 3aautorepair.com, or you can call or text 602-997-7978. If you'd like to talk to somebody specifically about your diesel, give us a call and you can talk to one of our diesel experts. We'll make sure that your diesel lasts a long time, performs at its peak, and it's running the most efficiently.